The moons of Zera-3 were quiet, broken places. They were filled with scrap. Metal, wrecked ships, and forgotten tech. Scavengers came and went, always looking for something valuable. Cal was one of them, a human, and he worked alone. He trusted no one, and no one trusted him. One cold morning, Cal stepped into an old crash site. The air smelled like rust and burned oil. His boots crunched over glass and wires. He had found nothing for hours. Then he heard it, a soft, high-pitched screech. It didn't sound like metal. It sounded alive. Cal froze. He turned off his scanner and listened. Again the sound came closer this time, but weak, like it was dying. He followed the noise, heart thudding. The sound led him to a broken fuel pipe. Black and hollow, he shined his light inside. Two glowing eyes stared back at him. Something was in there. It looked small, very small, shivering, dirty, hiding in fear. Its skin was pale blue, with tiny scales. Long ears, tangled hair, and sharp teeth that showed as it hissed, a child. Cal whispered, not believing what he saw. It didn't answer, only backed deeper into the pipe. "Easy now," he said slowly. "I'm not gonna hurt you." The little creature didn't move. Cal pulled a protein bar from his belt and gently rolled it toward her. She didn't touch it, but her eyes stayed locked on him. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind him. Other scavengers were nearby. Cal panicked. If they saw her, they'd take her, sell her, hurt her, or worse. He looked around quickly. Then, without thinking, he reached in and grabbed her. She bit his hand, hard. He winced, but didn't let go. She was light, barely 5 pounds, and squirmed like a wild animal. He stuffed her inside his thick coat, zipped it, and whispered, "Stay quiet. Please." The other scavengers appeared just seconds later. "Yo, Cal, find anything good?" one asked. Cal shrugged, "Just busted circuits." They looked around, but didn't notice anything strange. Inside his coat, he felt tiny claws clutching his shirt. After a few tense minutes, the others walked off. Cal waited until they were gone before returning to his ship. Once inside, he gently unzipped his coat. The little alien girl hissed again, still scared, but now he could see her better. She was no bigger than a human toddler. Her arms were skinny, her eyes too big for her face, but they were full of something more than fear, pain. Maybe even loneliness. Cal didn't speak right away. He sat down, opened another protein bar, and laid it on the table. Then he stepped back, giving her space. She stayed hidden in the shadows for a long time, but eventually, her hunger won. She crept forward, eyes on Cal, and grabbed the food. She didn't eat like a child. She devoured it like she hadn't eaten in days. Cal said softly, "What happened to you?" Of course, she didn't reply. She just stared, chewing slowly now. Eyes still watching him carefully. That night, Cal set up a little bed using rags and cloth in the corner of the room. He motioned toward it. "For you," he said. She tilted her head, confused, but didn't move. Cal didn't force her. He just lay down on his bunk and turned off the lights, but in the middle of the night, he felt something crawl across his chest. Tiny feet, trembling breath, and then warmth under his arm. He stayed still. Surprised, the girl had snuck in too. His coat again, curled up like a kitten. She was shaking, but no longer hissing. For the first time, she slept. Cal whispered to the darkness, "Guess I've got a new co-pilot." And then he closed his eyes. Outside, on the scanners he forgot to turn off. A faint signal pulsed, unmarked, unknown, and getting closer. The next morning, Cal woke up before the ship's lights powered on. He moved carefully, trying not to wake the small alien girl curled up in his jacket. She was still there, still sleeping, her tiny fingers clutching the edge of his shirt. He had no idea why she trusted him now, but he wasn't about to break that trust. Cal slipped out of bed, moving slow. He set up some food and water on the table, Hoping she'd eat more today, when she woke up, she blinked a few times, looked around nervously, and then ducked back into the coat she had claimed as her nest. "You hungry?" Cal asked gently. He didn't get a reply, but he noticed her nose twitching toward the food. He took a few steps back, and after a long pause, he jumped onto the chair and started eating with quick bites. Her face was still full of fear, but there was something new, like she was curious about him. Suddenly, the ship's alarm beeped. A motion sensor, just outside. Cal cursed under his breath and rushed to the window. 3 scavengers, the same ones from yesterday, were heading toward his ship. He looked back at the little alien girl. She stared at him, wide-eyed crumbs on her lips. "Hide," he whispered. Pointing to his coat hanging on the chair, she didn't move at first, but then crawled into it quickly, disappearing into the folds. Cal zipped the coat halfway and threw another one over it, making sure she was hidden. Then he stepped to the hatch and opened it just as they knocked. "Morning, Cal," said Ragos, the leader of the scavenger group. "What do you want?" Cal asked, keeping his voice calm. "Just checking in," Ragos said, pretending to be friendly. "You left fast yesterday. Didn't even say goodbye." Cal forced a grin. "Didn't find anything worth talking about." Ragos and his 2 goons pushed past him, uninvited. They began looking around the ship like they owned the place. "You sure?" Ragos asked, glancing at Cal's gear. "No strange tech? No survivors?" Cal's heart pounded. He stood between them and the chair with the coat. "Only thing I found was rust and broken wiring," he said. "You want some coffee, or are you just here to sniff around?" The men didn't laugh, but they stopped moving. One of them eyed the coat. "What's that?" he asked. Cal moved fast, grabbing the coat and tossing it casually to the side. "Old junk? I sleep with it when it gets cold," he said, forcing a chuckle. "Ship gets lonely sometimes." The scavenger frowned, but didn't say anything. Cal could feel Z trembling inside the coat, even from across the room. He prayed she didn't make a sound. After a few more minutes, Ragos gave a signal. "We're heading out," he said, "but let us know if you find anything strange. You? Here." Cal nodded. "Sure," he said. First thing, they left, finally. And Cal shut the door fast, locking every bolt. He turned and pulled the coat open gently. Z was curled up inside, shaking, but silent. She looked up at him, eyes full of confusion and fear. "You did great," he whispered. "I'm proud of you." Z made a soft noise, almost like a purr. Then she crawled out, jumped onto the chair, and looked at the food again. Hush. She didn't eat right away, just stared at Cal. With her glowing eyes, after a long pause, she pointed at herself and made a soft sound. "Z." Cal blinked. "Z? Is that your name?" She tilted her head, then tried again. "Z. Z." Cal repeated, smiling. "I'll call you Z." She nodded once, then reached for the food again. Cal sat across from her and watched. She ate slower now, not like she was starving, more like she felt safer. Hours passed and Cal tried to rest. He cleaned the ship, checked his scanners, and made sure no one else was coming. All the while, Z stayed close, hiding when the ship made noise, but always returning to sit near him. That night, while Cal was working on his tools, he felt something touch his hand. He looked down. Z was handing him a small bolt, something she must have found and cleaned. He took it, smiled, and said, "Thanks, little engineer." She didn't smile, but she sat beside him on the floor, tail wrapped around her legs. Then, something strange happened. She looked up at him and whispered, "Safe." Cal blinked, stunned. "Yes," he said softly. "You're safe here." Z curled up next to him and closed her eyes. For the first time, Cal realized she didn't just trust him. She needed him, outside in the shadows of the scrap hills. A hidden drone blinked to life. It had found her, and it was already sending a signal home. The next morning, Cal woke up to find Z already awake. She was sitting on the control panel, staring out the window. Her small hands were pressed against the glass as she watched the dusty scrap fields outside. The sky above was gray with mist, and 2 distant moons hung low over the horizon. She turned when she heard Cal stir, then quickly hopped down, hiding behind a seat. Cal sat up slowly and rubbed his face. "You don't have to hide," he said gently. "Not from me." Z peeked at him, her glowing eyes watching his every move. Then, without a word, she slowly came closer. She sat down on the floor near his boots, wrapping her tail around her legs. Cal didn't reach out, didn't try to touch her. He just got up and prepared breakfast. He placed a protein bar and some water in front of her, and then sat across the room. Z sniffed the food and began to eat, her eyes flicking back and forth between bites. It wasn't fear anymore, it was caution. She still didn't understand him, but she was learning. Cal spent the rest of the morning repairing a broken drone from yesterday's salvage. He noticed Z slowly creeping closer. She crawled on all fours, stopping and watching every few feet. Then she reached out and touched one of the tools. Cal watched, but didn't say anything. Z picked up the tool, turned it the wrong way, and poked herself in the cheek. She squeaked and dropped it. Cal smiled. "That's a screwdriver," he said, holding up another one. "You use it like this." He twisted it into a panel gently, showing her. Z watched, head tilted, then tried again, this time correctly. "You're a quick learner," Cal said with a soft grin. Z didn't reply, but a strange little sound came from her. Like a tiny laugh. It was the first time she had made that noise, and it felt warm. Later that day, Cal decided to check the local comms network. He connected his ship system to a nearby relay beacon and scanned for signals. His eyes narrowed as he saw something that made his stomach tighten. A bounty alert. The message was marked as confidential, but Cal's ship was old military. He had ways to see things others couldn't. The alert read, "Subject, bioasset 733 Delta. Last seen on Zera 3's moonfield. Dangerous. Do not approach without containment team. Reward, 90,000 credits." Cal didn't need a picture. He knew it was Z. His blood ran cold. Bioasset. They thought she was a weapon or some experiment. No wonder she was so afraid. No wonder she hid. Cal looked over at her. She was lying on the floor now, her head resting on a coiled blanket, eyes slowly blinking as she watched a small flashing light on the wall. She looked peaceful, innocent, not dangerous. But if others came looking for her, they wouldn't care. They'd take her away, or worse. Cal shut down the comms and erased his connection. He walked over and sat beside Z. She turned her head and looked up at him, blinking. "You're in danger, aren't you?" he asked quietly. "They want to find you." Z didn't understand the words, but she seemed to feel the meaning. She crept into his lap without a sound, curled up, and closed her eyes. Cal wrapped his arms around her gently. "I won't let them take you," he whispered. No matter what. Hours passed, and Cal worked on the ship's shields and sensors. Z stayed nearby, sometimes watching, sometimes helping in her own little way. She handed him tools, pressed buttons he pointed at, and even mimicked some of his movements. She was learning fast, too fast. By the 3rd day, she was already opening hatches, navigating short corridors, and even accessing basic control screens. Cal was amazed. No child, no being should be this smart at her size. She wasn't just a child. She was something special. Something made, but made for what? To fight, to destroy, or to survive. That night, Cal sat at the dinner table. Z perched on the edge of a chair across from him. He placed a small plate in front of her, and she nodded politely before eating. He chuckled. "You're starting to act like a crew member." Z looked up and mimicked his words perfectly. "Crew, mem." Bear Cal nearly dropped his cup. She had repeated the words, not just the sounds. Her voice was soft, still learning, but clear. "You understand me now?" he asked, stunned. Z tilted her head, then slowly nodded. She placed her tiny hand on her chest and said, "See." Then she pointed at him. "Cal." Then she smiled. A real one. It wasn't wide or perfect, but it was hers, in that moment. Cal realized something big. Z didn't just trust him now. She had chosen him. But just as he was about to speak, the ship's emergency beacon lit up. Someone had entered the system. A ship with no ID, no signal, and no reason to be there. Z looked at the blinking red light and made a soft whimper. Cal gently lifted her up and placed her in his coat again. "We'll be fine," he whispered. "I promised you." He sat in the pilot seat, arms around her tiny shape, and waited for whatever was coming. The unidentified ship moved through space like a silent ghost. No name, no transponder, and no response to any hails. Cal watched it from the cockpit, eyes narrowed, heart pounding. Z was in his lap again, curled inside his coat, completely still. "I don't like this," Cal muttered, keeping his voice low. The ship was not a scavenger, not a traitor, and definitely not friendly. It had no markings but its shape. Its design, it looked military, black armor, sharp fins, and long-range sensors, definitely a hunter ship. Z stirred slightly and made a soft clicking sound in her throat. Cal glanced down. "You know that ship, don't you?" She didn't speak, but she trembled, and her claws gripped his shirt tighter. That was enough for him. Cal tapped the controls, switching to low-power mode. His ship dimmed its lights and dropped closer to the moon's surface, hiding behind the junk piles. He disabled all outward signals and cut the engines. They were now a shadow among shadows. Hours passed slowly. Cal didn't move, didn't eat, barely breathed. He kept his arm around Z, feeling the soft thump of her tiny heart. Finally, the hunter ship moved on, drifting toward another part of the moon. Cal didn't relax, not yet. Z looked up at him with tired, glowing eyes and whispered, "Danger." "You're right," he replied quietly. "We're not safe here anymore." That night, Cal began digging through his own ship's databanks. He searched for anything at all that might tell him what Z really was. She wasn't just a scared child. She learned too fast, moved too quietly, and understood things even before he spoke them. He ran a DNA scan from a bit of her hair he found on the chair. What came up shocked him. Z wasn't one species, she was a hybrid of two. One part came from the Zelari, species known for speed and neural processing. The other came from the Threx, a warlike race with bio-enhanced strength and regeneration, but both species were destroyed during a brutal war nearly 10 years ago. Cal leaned back, stunned. Someone had mixed them. Someone had created Z. She wasn't a natural child. She was designed. But why? And how did she end up abandoned on a moon full of junk? Z wandered into the cockpit and climbed onto his chair. She saw the data on the screen and stared at it for a long time. Then she said something in a soft, broken voice. "Project Delta Z 3. Cal turned to her. "Is that what they called you?" She nodded once, slow and sad. He reached for her hand. And this time, she didn't flinch. "You're not a project anymore," he said. "You're just Z." She looked at him, blinking fast, then slowly leaned forward and rested her head on his chest. For the first time, she felt safe enough to cry. Tiny, silent tears rolled down her face, and Cal just held her, not saying a word. Later, while Z slept in the coat on his lap, Cal activated the ship's defense protocols. He boosted the shields and set auto-targeting to engage any threat within 500 meters. He knew it wasn't enough, not against a real military vessel, but it was something. He also made a decision: they couldn't stay here. They needed to leave the system, go off-grid, vanish, but fuel was low. And his ship wasn't fast anymore. He opened a private comlink and sent out a message, encrypted, short, and clear. To any Terran vessel, civilian ship requesting urgent aid, child on board, hunted by unknowns. Help us. He didn't expect a reply. But within 5 minutes, a ping returned. A Terran patrol vessel was nearby, closer than he expected. They were coming, fast. Cal looked down at Z. Still curled up peacefully, she had been through so much, hunted, abandoned, created in a lab like a tool. But somehow, she still laughed, still trusted. Still curled up like a kitten in his pocket. He knew then she wasn't a weapon, she was a survivor. When the Terran ship arrived, its lights lit up the sky like a second sun. Cal stepped out slowly, hands raised. Z peeked out from inside his coat. The Terran soldiers aimed their weapons, then paused when they saw her. Is that the missing asset? One whispered, another replied, no. Look at her, she's just a child. Cal stepped forward, voice calm but firm. She's not an asset. She's not a weapon. She's Z. The commander lowered his weapon. Then let's get you both out of here. Cal climbed back into his ship, Z still in his coat. She whispered just one word. Home? He smiled. Not yet. But we're getting close. Outside, in the wreckage of the moon, the hunter ship turned back again. And this time, it brought friends. The black of space had never looked so dangerous. 3 hostile ships closed in fast. Glowing with red energy trails, Cal's ship shuddered as he pushed the old engines to their limit. Z sat beside him in the co-pilot seat, strapped in tight, her small hands gripping the armrests. The Terran patrol vessel flew ahead, trying to block the attackers. But Cal knew it wouldn't be enough this time. These weren't bounty hunters or lab agents. These were enforcers, the kind sent when all else failed. This is it, Cal said under his breath. No more running. Z looked at him, her face calm but serious. She said only one word, fight. Cal gave her a short nod. Yeah, kid, we fight. The first blast hit them from behind. The ship's shields held but just barely. Cal pulled into a roll, dodging the second shot, while alarms screamed in every direction. Z suddenly unbuckled her seat and climbed into his lap. Z, what are you doing? He asked, confused. She reached up to the control panel with glowing fingers. Strange symbols appeared across the screen, symbols Cal couldn't read. The ship responded instantly. Engines roared louder. The shields flickered, then strengthened. Z had just reprogrammed the ship in real time. Cal stared in shock. How? How did you do that? Z didn't answer. She just looked ahead, her eyes bright like tiny stars. Then she spoke, soft but powerful. They made me to destroy, she said. But I don't want to, I know. Cal said gently, you're not like them. I want to protect, she added, like you do. Cal blinked back the tight feeling in his chest. Z had chosen her path, not one built by those who created her, but one she made herself. Outside, the Terran ship was hit. Hard, spiraling, but not down. Cal opened the com. We're going in, he said. Cover us. He turned toward the enemy ship straight into danger. Z's eyes glowed even brighter now, and her fingers moved across the panel again. The weapon system changed. A pulse cannon activated, something buried deep in the ship's systems. Old tech, powerful but unstable. Are you sure about this? Cal asked her. Z nodded, not afraid, not hiding. I protect now, she said. You protect me. I protect us. Cal smiled softly. All right, Starlight, he whispered. Let's show them what we've got. The ship blasted forward, faster than before. The pulse cannon charged. And with Z's final command, die fired. A wave of energy surged out like a blinding star. One of the enemy ships exploded instantly. The others tried to dodge, but their systems failed. Everything around them turned to static. They spun, powerless, falling out of orbit. The sky cleared. The battle was over. Inside the ship, the power drained and lights dimmed. Z fell back into Cal's arms, breathing heavy, her strength fading. Z, he called, holding her tight. Stay with me. She looked up, eyes tired but shining. Did we win? She asked in a whisper. We did, Cal said, voice cracking. You saved us. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he smiled through them. You did more than fight, he whispered. You proved them all wrong. The Terran ship returned. Escorting them into safe space, medical teams waited. But Z refused to leave Cal's side. She stayed curled in his coat, even during the checkups. Later, Reese entered the room, holding a datapad. She gave Cal a look half warning. Half respect. High Command reviewed everything. She said, they want her protected. Not captured. She's not a weapon, Cal said firmly. No, Reese replied. She's something more. Z blinked up at Reese. No fear in her gaze now, only calm. A week passed, then another. Z recovered fast, stronger each day. She learned how to read, how to fly, and even how to laugh. She made her own little room on Cal's ship, though she still napped in his coat when tired. One quiet evening, Cal sat outside on a repair crate, staring at the stars. Z climbed up beside him, holding the little metal star she had once given him. She placed it in his hand again. What's this for? He asked, smiling reminder. She said, you saved me. Cal looked down at her. No, Z. You saved yourself. She leaned against him, quiet for a moment. Then she said, can we stay together? Always. Cal looked at the sky, then down at her. You're my little starlight, he said softly. And wherever you go, Z smiled. Resting her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't a weapon. She was a child. She was Z, and she finally had a home. The Terran patrol ship was fast, but not fast enough. As Cal's ship lifted off from the surface of Zera-3's moon, warning signals screamed across the control panel. Z, still in his coat, clung tightly to his chest, her tiny hands gripping his shirt. From the rear cameras, Cal saw them 3 ships, black and sleek, rising from the junk fields. They're following, Cal muttered. Pulling back on the controls, the Terran ship beside him responded. Copy that, we're engaging. The space around them lit up with flashes of blue and red as the hunter ships opened fire. Lasers ripped through the void, and one beam skimmed across Cal's hull. The ship rocked, metal creaked, and sparks burst from the side panels. Z whimpered, crawling deeper into Cal's coat. It's okay, he whispered, wrapping one arm protectively around her. I've got you. The Terran patrol vessel returned fire, fast and sharp. One of the enemy ships exploded in a ball of light, but the other 2 kept chasing, faster than expected. These aren't bounty hunters, the Terran commander said over the comms. These are corporate interceptors. Cal's stomach turned. Corporate, that meant labs, bioweapons, and people with enough power to bend the law. They didn't care about right or wrong, only about property. She's not going back to them, Cal said firmly, steering the ship into a narrow asteroid belt. The Terran pilot followed him in. They flew between rocks and ice, dodging blasts that came too close. Inside the ship, Z's eyes were glowing softly in fear. But she didn't cry. Instead, she reached up and pressed her hand to the control screen beside Cal. The lights on the panel changed, shifting from red to orange. Wait, what did you just do? He asked, surprised. Z looked at him and said quietly, boost. The engines roared louder. The ship moved faster, sharper, cleaner. Z had somehow improved the power flow. She's learning how to fly, Cal whispered to himself, stunned. The Terran ship pushed forward and blasted another enemy vessel, but the final interceptor was still close and gaining. Cal turned hard, trying to lose it in a debris field from an old warship. Warning, the ship's AI said target. Locked, Cal held Z tighter. He thought fast, too fast. Then he remembered something. An old override code buried in his ship's system, a stealth pulse. Used only in emergencies, it would fry nearby scanners, but disable his own systems. For 30 seconds, he looked down at Z. Will disappear. But only for a little while. She nodded, like she understood. He hit the button. A wave of static burst from the ship. Everything inside went dark. The lights, the engines, the screens all shut off. Z didn't move. She was calm now, silent. In the darkness, Cal held her close. His breath the only sound. Seconds passed like hours. Then, the lights flickered back. The radar showed nothing behind them. The enemy was gone. The Terran ship reconnected. You're clear. The voice came. Through. We thought we lost you. Cal sighed. You almost did. Z sat in his lap again, her head resting against his chest. She was shaking. Not from fear, but from exhaustion. She needs rest, Cal said. And food, bring her aboard, the Terran officer said. We'll protect her. Cal hesitated, then looked down at Z. Do you want to go with them? She shook her head and whispered, no. Stay, Cal. He smiled gently. Then we stick together. The Terran commander didn't argue. Instead, they flew in formation, deeper into neutral space. As they entered safe territory, Z began to relax again. She climbed out of the coat and onto Cal's shoulder. Like a small pet bird, she perched there, watching the stars pass by. Later, while Cal worked on repairs, Z sat beside him, quietly humming. Then she reached out and placed something on the Tabula small device made from scrap parts. What's this? Cal asked. Z pressed a button, and a hologram flickered on. A memory. It showed Z in a dark lab, surrounded by machines. She was younger, scared, in a glass cage. Voices spoke in a strange language, cold and scientific. Then, one day, the cage opened and she ran. The memory ended. Z looked down, eyes full of pain. Cal leaned forward and gently placed his hand over hers. You're not in that cage anymore. He said, you're free now. Z looked up, blinked, and then climbed into his coat again. It had become her home safe, warm, hers, outside. The Terran ship scanned for more pursuers, but Cal knew this wasn't over. Whoever made Z wanted her back. And they wouldn't stop, but neither would he. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window. Cal sat in the ship's main cabin, tired but alert. He held a warm drink in one hand, while his other hand gently rested over the small bulge in. His coat, inside Z, was curled up once again, her soft breathing rising and falling like a tiny heartbeat. The Terran patrol ship flew alongside them, a silent guardian. It had been 2 days since the attack. There were no more signals, no more enemy ships, but the danger was still there. Always watching, always waiting, Cal stared out the window and thought about everything. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't a hero. Just a scavenger who got too close to something he shouldn't have found. But now? It wasn't just about finding Z. It was about keeping her safe. The door behind him opened. A Terran officer stepped in, a woman named Captain Reese. She was tall, calm, and had the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Permission to come aboard? She asked, even though she was already inside. Cal nodded. Yeah, sure. Reese stepped closer, her boots making quiet thuds on the metal floor. She noticed the movement in his coat, the way Z shifted slightly at the sound of her voice. She always hides in there. Reese asked, curious. Cal nodded. She's only comfortable with me. Smart girl. Reese said with a half smile. We ran a full scan of her last night. Cal looked up sharply, without asking. Reese held up her hands. Easy. We didn't take anything, just passive scans. No touch, and? Cal asked. Reese sat down across from him, her face serious now. She's not just a hybrid, Cal, she said. She's something more, something advanced. She's a child, Cal replied firmly. Yes, but she's also a threat to the people who created her. Reese said, if she falls into their hands again, they'll erase her, or worse, use her. Then we don't let that happen, Cal said, tightening his hold on his coat. Reese sighed. You care about her. I can see that. But the galaxy isn't fair. You can't protect her forever, Cal looked at her with hard eyes. Then I'll die trying. Z peeked out. Sensing the tension, she looked at Reese, then at Cal, then whispered one word, safe. Cal didn't even blink. Yes, see, he said softly. You're safe, I promise. Reese watched quietly, then stood. I'll talk to Command, she said. See if we can make her disappear legally. Cal nodded, not trusting words anymore, only actions. When Reese left, Cal stood and walked to the back of the ship. There, in a small room filled with wires and boxes, he found what he was looking for, an old stealth module. It was broken, but not useless. He could fix it. He had to. Z followed him, her eyes scanning the parts as he worked. She sat on a crate beside him, swinging her legs like a normal little girl. Then she spoke, slowly, carefully. Cal, you stay. He looked at her, surprised of course. He said, I'm not leaving you. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Her skin was cold, her fingers small, but her touch was firm. Z nodded once, then whispered, I stay. 2. They worked together for hours. Fixing the stealth system, Z handed him tools without needing to be asked. She watched every move he made, learning, copying, helping. Cal paused once and looked at her. You're amazing. You know that? Z tilted her head, confused. Special, he said, pressing a hand gently to her chest. In here, she blinked slowly, then smiled. Later. Cal took Z outside onto the observation deck. There was no danger now, just stars above and silence. All around, Z climbed onto the railing and looked out, her eyes wide with wonder. Then she turned and said, stars look like home. Cal leaned beside her. Is that where you came from? Z didn't answer, just stared into the distance. Cal knew she didn't remember everything, not yet. Wherever your home was, he said, it doesn't matter now. She looked at him again. Because this, he said, tapping his coat, this is your home now, with me. Z reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, shiny object. It was a piece of metal shaped like a star. She handed it to Cal. Promise, she said. He took it gently, understanding what she meant. He nodded, voice low but full of truth. I promise. Suddenly, the deck lights flashed red. An alert echoed across the ship. Reese's voice came over the comm. Urgent, Cal. We have a problem. 3 more ships just entered the system. No ID, and they're heading straight for us. Cal lifted Z into his arms without hesitation. She clung to him like a shadow. He ran back inside and sealed the doors. The stars no longer looked peaceful. Now, they burned with the promise of danger, but Cal didn't run. He placed Z into the co-pilot seat, buckled her in, and turned on the engines. Z, he said, remember what I said? She nodded, eyes wide. Home. She whispered, right, he said. We don't let anyone take it from us. Together, they flew into the dark. 1 human and 1 tiny alien girl, ready to fight for the only thing that mattered now, each other.